All right, folks, welcome back to the Steve Malzberg Show. Joining us in a few minutes, Tom Fitton, president of Judicial Watch, and we have a very interesting conversation coming up with him about Eric Holder's role in Ferguson, and also an exciting new video that you could see that documents all the corruption, not only in this administration, but in previous administrations. First, I want to tell you about how this case, this Ferguson case, the Michael Brown shooting, is breaking down along racial lines. You may not be surprised, but you may be surprised at the extent to which this is happening. A Rasmussen poll shows that 57% of black adults, 57% of black adults think police officer Darren Wilson should be found guilty of murder. They don't know anything. They don't know anything. Yet they think he should be found guilty of murder. Okay? Compared to 17% of whites who don't know anything. But don't we have a innocent till proven guilty structure in our judicial system, our criminal justice system here? So 57% of blacks compared to 17% of whites and 24% of other minority Americans. Most whites, 56, and a plurality, he said, of other minorities, 49%, are undecided. But not blacks. Almost 6 in 10 say guilty of murder. That's scary stuff. Scary, scary stuff. And also, if you want to go the entire population, 23% of American adults believe that the police officer who shot and killed Michael Brown it should be found guilty of murder. 23% total, but that's including the 56% or 57%, I should say, of African Americans who believe that. That is frightening, frightening stuff, ladies and gentlemen. You know why? Because we don't know anything. And what we do know seems it might be a defense for the officer. All right, folks, Tom Fitton's going to join us. I want us to watch a trailer from his new documentary.
This country is in trouble.
I think it's very important for people who are in leadership positions to behave responsibly.
I don't quit. Let's seize this moment to start anew.
Too many politicians here in Washington think the rules don't apply to them.
You're saying, well, the separation of powers prohibits you from doing that. That's baloney. That is just baloney. So why don't you give us those documents? The conclusion that I come to is there's some things in there that's being hidden that you don't want us to see.
All right, folks, there you go. That is a scene from the Corruption Chronicles. And joining us now to tell us all about them and talk a lot more about Missouri and the IRS, you name it, Tom Fitton, president of Judicial Watch. Hey, Tom.
Hey, Steve, that was the District of Corruption. The Corruption Chronicles is the companion book to the movie.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Oh, right. My mistake. My mistake. You were the author of the Corruption Chronicles. Absolutely, my mistake. And that was the District of Corruption. Okay, so tell the folks, although we get the gist of it, tell the folks what it's all about.
You know, the movie tells you from soup to nuts what's wrong with Washington. And I tell you, for instance, the Fast and Furious section, it's a film we did in partnership with Steve Bannon. It's the best thing you'll see on video talking about Fast and Furious. We cover illegal immigration. We cover election integrity. We talk about the Clintons. We talk about the Bushes. If you want to know what's going on in Washington, that film, which was made back in 2012, is your go-to film. I tell you, it's the best thing out there if you're trying to understand how the city works or doesn't work for you.
And people could see it where?
They can go to the website at judicialwatch.org, and you'll see ways to get it through our website at judicialwatch.org. Again, District of Corruption. And the book is The Corruption Chronicles. I keep it here on my desk because I'm always using it as a reference guide, not only for Obama corruption, what happened in the Bush years, and then what happened in the Clinton years.
Yeah, well, let's talk about what's happening here in the Obama years a little more, and most specifically what's happening in Ferguson, Missouri. The Attorney General really being proactive here, let's put it that way, ordering not only an investigation, a federal investigation, but also reportedly telling the police in Ferguson not to release the video of the store robbery, which Al Sharpton yesterday called shoplifting, and also supposedly saying, tell them to take the blankety-blank tanks off the street, and also ordering a third autopsy. Very unusual, no?
It was really outrageous. I mean, the Justice Department under Eric Holder is engaged in racially inflammatory rhetoric and actions designed to increase, frankly, division rather than keep the peace. I mean, I read today that they have dozens of FBI agents going around Missouri trying to figure out what went on in this incident. You know, I don't know about you, Steve. Do you remember any reports recently about dozens of FBI agents doing anything else of that, you know, in terms of a comparable investigation? I'm not, you know, maybe 9/11 or maybe the Boston bombing. Eric Holder, unfortunately, has a real ideologically far left view on racial issues. They view law and order through the Jesse Jackson, Al Sharpton lens. You know, and it's one thing to have Al Sharpton down there. I mean, he's been an activist who is not reliable and has been an insider for many, many years. But to have the Attorney General, you know, talk about and make these assumptions and behave in such a way to really validate the violence that's going on, as opposed to provide for the public safety, and a sense that he's being fair, neutral, and biased. I mean, fair, neutral, and unbiased. Yeah. Does anyone think that justice is blind in the Justice Department about this? And of course, you have the President Obama's personal involvement. You know, we saw the Justice Department intervene in the Trayvon Martin case to organize protests that not only led to the police chief being resigning, but also to that prosecution that ended up fizzling. There is no doubt in my mind the Justice Department wants to prosecute this police officer, whether he's innocent or guilty. And this race-based decision-making at the Justice Department needs to stop. And let's not be distracted by their protestations that they're concerned about civil rights. They're concerned about making political points in a race-based, cynical way that is really beneath contempt. And Eric Holder, in my view, has been so inappropriate for the Justice Department for so many years. You know, mostly because of what I knew what he did during the Clinton years, but his racialism in approaching enforcing the rule of law Justice Department, it has turned the Justice Department. You can't trust the Justice Department, in my view, based on not only what I have seen through documents, but based on independent reports by the Inspector General's office. In many key areas, you can't trust this Justice Department to enforce the law in a racially neutral way.
Let me ask you a question. You know, we keep hearing that, and I don't know if DOJ has brought this up yet, but I had Jesse Jackson on earlier, and he was going ahead full steam with this. There's only 5 blacks or 4 blacks on the police department, and very small amount of firefighters, and a majority black city, et cetera. And so I said to him, with all due respect, I don't know what those numbers mean unless you know, Reverend, how many blacks have applied to be police officers? How many blacks have applied to be firefighters? Do you know those numbers? He said, no. Well, if you don't know the numbers, then what do those other numbers mean?
Right. You know, I don't know whether this is true or not. I've heard discussions that the police force doesn't pay well. So if you're a qualified black applicant, you're better off getting a job somewhere else, simply because you can get better pay. You know, this is the sort. Look. This is the problem. We have got people like Jesse Jackson and Al Sharpton controlling the debate, controlling the narrative that the media is playing up. And you don't have anyone who has a sense of having to ensure all the public is protected and to not play these racial games. And you're not getting that from Eric Holder and his Justice Department. And it's not just Eric Holder. You know, the Justice Department Civil Rights Division is kind of a hotbed of this type of activism.
Yep.
We knew their Community Relations Division, which is supposed to go down there and be so-called peacekeepers, go down there with the attitude they usually just showing up suggests that there was a racial aspect to the shooting, when frankly there's nothing that you could draw that conclusion necessarily about other than you had a white officer and a black victim.
Right.
And that there was racialism or racism behind it. Just showing up kind of validates the worst possible analysis, as opposed to there was a police shooting, let's find out what the facts are, and then we'll talk about, if necessary, whether there needs to be more sensitivity about racial divisions in policing and community policing concerns in that city. Here, they jumped immediately to the Jesse Jackson conclusion. We demand more, and we ought to expect more from the Attorney General, who's supposed to work for all the people.
Absolutely. We have about a minute and a half left. I know you and representing Cheryl Atkinson, you're both going after, through Freedom of Information, information about the Obamacare rollout. But I want to ask you first, because we only have time for one of these, IRS. What's the latest? Am I right that now they're saying, and they swore in court in answer to your lawsuits, that they tried to salvage these emails from Lerner and the others, but they're gone? Is that what they're now saying? So they're done?
Oh, you know what? I don't know what they're saying. The court demanded they provide explanations. I couldn't make heads or tails of what they did. I thought they were making a joke of the court. The court on its own this week, or just last week, after a few days, look at what was filed, and he started asking more questions. Steve, I've been doing this for 16 years at Judicial Watch. I've never seen a court take action like that on its own before.
So it's not just me.
It's
not just me by getting confused by reading the reports of how they responded. You and the judge are confused too.
Look, this is the headline. The IRS is in cover-up mode, and they don't care that they're doing it in court.
Right. That's a very scary headline. Tom, great talking to you. And again, of course, Tom, president of Judicial Watch and the author of the New York Times bestseller, The Corruption Chronicles. And go to the Judicial Watch website and check out how to get your hands on District of Corruption, which is the video based on the book. Tom, great talking to you, sir. Thank you very much.
Hey, thank you. Appreciate it, Steve.
My pleasure. All right, folks, up next, we're going to be joined by the Lieutenant Governor of the state of Missouri, Peter Kinder, and we'll get the lowdown from him on where we stand right now, the latest on the Steve Malzberg Show.